Deborah, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
It's great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much, people. So, this is Debra Williams. Debra Williams is an empowerment coach, author, and film producer focused on positive stories that reflect the real diversity of joy in multicultural Black communities. We love it. So, Deborah, how was your week so far? How's everything going?
The week is great. I'm weird because fall is my favorite season. I love fall. I love the colors. I love the bundling up. I love the layers. And so I'm having a really great time while everybody's complaining. I love the mood. I love cloudy skies. They're my glimmer. So I'm having a really great week. How
All
about
right.
you?
Well, I had a good week as well, thank you. Because I have an event coming up, I spent the last couple days on road hitting up a couple different events. I went to about 8 different events on Saturday because I was out handing out flyers and networking and meeting new entrepreneurs. And on Sunday, I hit an event early, and then I spent the evening at the Deluxe Gala, soaking up some gems, and again, just eating some good food and meeting some of the entrepreneurs. So it was pretty productive. But as you know, once the week starts, it's back to work for everybody. So,
After.
Deborah, I think we should start at the beginning with the who's, the what's, the where's, the when. So, tell everybody, who is Deborah Williams?
So I'm going to keep it to the brand thing, right? So thank you for introducing me as an empowerment coach. The reason I say that is because an empowerment coach is someone that gives people the permission to say no. I'm not a completion coach. I'm not someone who's trying to get you to the end of something. I'm someone who, when I work in my day as a DEI practitioner, someone who works in equity, diversity, and inclusion, and who works with mentoring students, mentoring other professionals. And when I do consulting, it's all about what the right answer is for the organization, the agency, the person that I'm dealing with. And so that's about empowerment. And it's about, choosing your heart. It's about choosing what it is you're willing to do differently to get what you want. And I'm someone who tries to guide people through that process. And it's reflected in the book that I wrote, which we'll get to.
All right, so we're going to get more about the book shortly, but I think we're going to continue on with the who's.
Yeah.
So, the first question that I have for you, Deborah, is who are your who are some of your favorite authors or literary influences, and how have they shaped your writing?
So I love dense autobiographies. I am really interested in reading about the lives of other people. I mean, fiction has its allure, but when I read the biography of people, think of Ian Fleming, for example. Here's someone who wrote about a spy because of the work that he did in World War II. And if you read Ian Fleming's real life, it's more interesting and bizarre to believe what he went through and who the characters that he's based on in his books than the books themselves. So I love autobiographies. I love biographies. I loved Malcolm X as one of my favorite biographies. I just read voraciously about the lives of other people to get an insight into what people had to overcome. And it also dispels the myth of people, the fact that you think that someone is smarter than you or has more access to things than you. And what you find out is that a lot of it has to do with connections, with luck, and with perseverance. So many people have got to where they are because they just didn't give up. And so I take inspiration from those stories.
Lovely, lovely. All right, well, keeping on that note, talking about the inspiration and people that inspire you, who are your ideal collaborators or partners within the literary world?
So ideally, right now, I'm just collaborating with all the people that I meet when I go to the book fairs that you put on. I meet other, uh, I meet other Black women that and other authors that have said, I have something to write about, and I'm going to step outside of my comfort zone, and I'm going to write about something that I know, and I'm going to heal through it, and I'm going to share my experiences with others because that's the way our knowledge exchange. We lift as we climb. And so when I meet people at book fairs, the Black Book Fair, the pop-up book fairs that you do, and I make connections with those people, it's very validating. It's very validating to hear the stories of other people saying, I have a child who's autistic and I wanted to find a children's book for my child, so I wrote it. Or I'm a teacher and I'm not seeing books that have representation, so I wrote books that have children from all across the diversity of cultures that I teach so that they can see themselves in their books. So I really find inspiration from people who buck the system and say, I don't really need to have a big, contract. I'm not J.K. Rowling's. I'm not Stephen King. I'm a school teacher from Markham, and I'm going to write a book for the children in my neighborhood. So those people really give me a lot of inspiration.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Thank
And I'd
you.
have to kind of agree with that. From talking to different entrepreneurs, not just authors, but even people that create products, I find that one of the most common reasons folks start a journey or create a product is because of something personal that they've either gone through or they've been through something or they're trying to solve a problem. So
Hmm.
I think that's a common thing among entrepreneurs. So I definitely agree with you there. Now, what or who I should say, or what inspired you to become an entrepreneur or a writer?
I grew up in a family business. My parents were entrepreneurs. My dad was a pharmacist and my mom was an accountant, and they ran a pharmacy together. This was before I knew anything about. I grew up in Jamaica, and we grew up living above the pharmacy, which is kind of like the Shoppers Drug Mart of its time. And I watched my parents interact with the community and serve the community and provide an essential service through having a variety store and a pharmacy. And I was really inspired by that. I worked in the pharmacy. I was the kid that was packing out the comics, and my reward was that I got to read them. So I'm a real comic nerd, which is not something that anybody looking at me may come to the conclusion about, but I'm a voracious reader, and my parents always encouraged that. I also love to journal and I love to write, and they always encouraged that. And so the inspiration was just the people around me, my aunts, my uncles, who are all tradespeople and people that did, start their own businesses, and showed me the value of believing in your own dreams and working hard to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I could testify to that as well because as a child and a teenager growing up, I used to watch my father at his work and place and watch my mom at their workplace, and I used to be there helping them out. And those type of things resonate with us as growing up. We see our parents working hard, working for themselves, doing what they got to do to provide for their families, and it gives us that extra motivation and inspiration to do the same. So I definitely resonate with you there. Um, Now, to throw it on a different side of the note, who is your favorite musician?
Oh, that's a tough one. For one answer to that is my father, because
Oh,
he was a pianist, and he had his own band in Jamaica when I was growing up, and he had 3 albums, and so I grew up listening to my father play the piano with his 4-piece band, Luther Williams Orchestra, and so I grew up around music. I went to classical piano lessons for 12 years, and right now, gosh, Lord, I like so many different kinds of music. What have I been listening to? That's a good one. It's Stevie Wonder.
okay,
It's
okay,
Stevie Wonder. I find myself always going back to Stevie Wonder for the lyrics, for the musicality, for the stories that inspire his music. I've been to 2 or 3 of his concerts, and it's a tie up between him and Lauryn Hill.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Lauren Hill was actually just down here, I believe, last week.
she was. I missed that
Yeah,
show.
I know. I wanted to go too, but I just had so much going on. A lot of people I know went and heard it was a great show. So hopefully
Mhm.
she comes back soon. But Lauren Hill is one of my favorite artists too. So that's a great answer there. Now, Deborah, who are the key people who have supported your writing journey, and how
Oh,
have they influenced your success?
so I cannot go any further than talking about my sister. My sister has been so supportive to me in my writing journey. She has always given me journals as a kid. She knows I love pens. She's always believed in me as a writer. As a matter of fact, every time I've written something, she's like, "That's a bestseller. You should get that out there." She's always back, behind me, saying that I'm really should take things out of my journals and put them on paper. So she's always been my biggest supporter. My brother, another person who's amazingly supportive of me. I have other friends that have supported the book, and that have read it and said that they've bought copies and given it to their friends and had book signings at their homes. So I just have a really great base of friends and family that have been incredibly supportive. But it's I wish I could tell you what it was like to take my books to Houston, Texas, where my sister lived, and have her drive me all around Houston to try to get my books into smaller bookstores with a storyline that is kind of challenging for some stories. And so we got it into 2 stores, and she was determined that people were going to see this book and they were going to support me. So my biggest cheerleader is my sister.
I mean, I don't doubt you there because I've been on your social media pages, and even when we were doing the whole LA project, I seen your sister reposting
Yeah.
some of your stuff. I seen her liking, commenting. To be honest with you, I actually got confused for a second because when I seen your sister, I was like, wait a minute, Deborah looks a little different today. So I think do people tell you that you guys look alike as well?
They do.
Yeah, I definitely got caught off guard the first time. I was like, I was like, oh, this is her sister. I had to like do a little social media navigating to kind of figure out what was going on there. So thank you for that. All right, now to spin it off again, Deborah. Who is your favorite actor or actress?
Oh gosh, I find myself seeing anything Denzel Washington is in and anything Viola Davis is in. Like
Two
I
great
just,
actors.
from Macbeth to The Equalizer for, Mr. Washington, and anything Viola Davis is in, from Doubt to The Woman King. They just really have a presence on the screen, and I those are the two that first came to mind. That if they're in it, I'm going to go and see it. I was a real fan of Chadwick Boseman. I wish that we could see more of his work, but he only did 10 films before his untimely death. So that was another performer I was looking forward to following, further into his career.
All right, now Deborah, we know you are an author. You have one book currently, right?
One currently and 3 on the way. So,
Three on the way. So, Deborah, if you were to collaborate with any author
ooh,
in the world,
oh,
if they were just one phone call away and you were going to co-write a book with that person, who would that person be?
I just read such dense academic stuff. The first person that actually comes to mind is another author who kind of, it's really hard to explain this person's life because it was very tragic. But there's a short story writer named Philip K. Dick, and Philip Dick was the person who wrote the short stories that became Johnny Mnemonic and became Blade Runner, which was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And the reason that I say that is because growing up and reading fantasy comics and things like that, the other person probably would be, gosh, he just Stan Lee. I'm a comic girl. I'm somebody who really likes the expansion of a short story in your own head. It's one thing to read about someone's life and get the full picture. It's another thing for someone to put an image in your head or an idea in your head, and then you fill in the blanks. And so I actually really love short stories as well. And so I can think of a lot of other authors that I've written, or that I've read, but between Stan Lee, who did those visuals that I really enjoyed, and Philip Dick, who did these short stories that became these much larger films that the stories went to the screen, uh, probably them, because I would love to see what they would do with my story. How they would adapt my story. It would be very
How they would convert it and adapt it to full
convert it,
length.
or how they would expand it, or what universe it would be in.
Yeah, Stanley is a very popular author, and I think a lot of people would agree with you there. Um,
And very
so,
progressive. He was very
but,
progressive in his representation of the images in his comics too.
so can you touch on that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, he was someone who advocated for diversity in graphic novels and in comics.
Oh, okay, yes, no, I
Yeah,
definitely agree with that because he doesn't just keep it to one culture, one type. He switches up
exactly.
scenes, he switches up what everything's about. So yeah, I definitely would agree with you there.
The other
Um,
the other person, if I may, is a
mhm.
person that comes a lot to your events, and it's the gentleman who illustrates Black Sun comics.
Oh yes,
The Black Sun comic series, I do have that, and that's very Afrofuturism.
Afrofuturist,
Oh,
Afrofuturism, yeah,
I
very
would love to
popular in
see.
in over the last couple of years, I've noticed that Black comics have gotten very, very popular. So it's good to see him taking that lead role and doing that over in Canada.
I'm sorry, his name escapes me right now, but that's the other one because I have all
Yeah,
his.
I know. I know. For some reason, it slips me. As soon as we come off air, I know I'm going to
You
remember.
remember it,
But
right?
you know how it is when you get put on the spot. It's all right. Now, Deborah, being an entrepreneur, what is the biggest challenge that you've encountered in your business, and how did you overcome it?
So I'm going to talk about the entrepreneurial journey of writing this thing, of writing Church Hat. So, this is something that I wrote. This is a children's book that I wrote as a result of grief, really. I wrote it in during the pandemic. And our mother died the year before, months before. And then we were safe at home. I say safe at home, not stuck at home, because for those of us who were able to be at home and have an income and have food delivered to us, and yes, it was isolating, and yes, it was normal. We were not the essential workers that were out there taking care of the world as it was going into very unfamiliar territory. So I say safe at home. And this was as a result of me wanting to pay tribute to my mother and grandmother, who I missed very much. It was the irony of the isolation that I thought, and I can't, I do have a partner, and we were safe at home together, but all I could think was, wow, it would be really great for us all to be in one house in the quarantine with mom, or grandma. That would be so much fun. We'd have such a good time. And so the entrepreneurial journey just starts with putting away the self-doubt, quieting any imposter syndrome you may have about, well, I've never done this before. How could I do this? The way you do it is you put one foot in front of the other and you start doing it. And the power of connections and the power of the supportive people around you who say yes and what can I do to help you? And what do you want to do? And let me be a source of energy for you when you don't have energy. And so the entrepreneurial road, it doesn't have to be a painful and alone if you are vulnerable to letting the people who love you and want to support you um, into the room with you while you're making this journey. And so that was a lesson for me because I'm pretty independent and I sometimes can be a little siloed in my way of doing things. But this journey to come up with this book was a group effort. This was a group effort. This was about me writing about, the church hat is something that is linked to our culture, right? Getting dressed for church. And growing up and seeing my mom and grandma on my mother's side wear these enormous hats that you almost, wondered, don't sit in front of me with that thing. There's three sizes, big, bigger, and don't sit in front of me. And they definitely had the don't sit in front of me hats. And for me to be able to remember them as women of faith who also made sure that generational trauma was not going to be something that they were going to send into the next generation. And so, this story, which is about a young boy who's questioning, and in my Caribbean household, it was very normal for everybody to be welcome. Whereas I know in some other households out there who may be of Caribbean origin and culture, someone who's expressing something outside of the binary may not necessarily be met with a sense of belonging and safety.
Yeah.
And so because I have family members, one in particular, my uncle John, who I'm very close to, is the representation of the young boy in the book, because I saw the safety, the protection, and the belonging that was just a foregone conclusion. The entrepreneurial journey that I made was to step outside of my comfort zone and write about it. I write about this, what I understand is to be a very unique experience of having a big Caribbean family that welcomed people who were outside of the binary definition, and pay tribute to the possibility of a happy ending without any. It doesn't have to be traumatic for you to realize that you are questioning who you are when other people around you love you and support your journey. So that's what this book was about. And after writing it, and after the success and going to book fairs like yours and getting incredible success from selling it, and after having it go into bookstores, I'm currently getting it into Indigo. I really feel empowered now to dig more into my creative side and pull out all the journals I have. I got to do a shout out to Latim Wick, who makes my favorite journals. This is one that she made for me, and I.
Hey, you think you're alone? You think you're alone?
Oh, that's right. Oh my God,
Shout
that's
out to
gorgeous.
Ladam Wick.
When I tell you, when you order something from her, you get exactly what you want. And this baby is in. She even put a purple pen in there for me. Does she know me? Does she know me? You know? So again, the power of connections, the power of coming across people that have said, I'm going to be doing this because I believe in me, and other people saying, I believe in you too, has been my entrepreneurial journey. I know that there are horror stories out there for other people that have faced a lot of barriers to entry, but I've been very, very fortunate to find people around me who've been incredibly supportive. And I'm just taking this one step at a time. The next step is to work with people that I met through the Toronto International Film Festival. I've been going to the film festival for 22 years and met people in line at Midnight Madness and things like that. And one person in particular, Eric Houghton, who's someone who's with the Baltimore Filmmakers Collective, is a managing producer on turning the book into an animated short through a conversation we had sitting on John Street between films, and him saying, what do you want to do with your book? It's the power of connections. I will always thank you for making the power of connections come through for people, because it can be disorienting, right? Where do you start, right? Well, we start with entering a room that you've put together, surrounded by tables with people having their cards and their contact information, being able to say, you wrote a comic, you wrote a book, you do journals, you're a teacher, you're someone that can, introduce me to a school that wants to have me come and talk to their classroom. Those things are indescribably helpful. And so my journey has been easier because I've been open to those connections.
To good connections. Perfect. Now, I know you touched on some of them earlier, but what are some pivotal milestones or achievements along your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I think that the first milestone I had was finishing it. This one,
Makes
you know,
sense.
just and I made the decision because of the times that we were in to self-publish. And I know growing up, the idea of self-publishing seemed a little sort of like a cop out, and people still think that if you don't go through a literary agent, that you didn't, really write something. But I had an editor look at it, and I had a designer in Janine Carrington, design this gorgeous book, this absolutely gorgeous book that is so eye-catching, and her illustrations are so incredible throughout, of all the people and all the situations. I have to shout out to Janine Carrington as the illustrator who always do my children's book. And the decision to self-publish was one that I made because I just had a sense of urgency. I knew that I was onto something. And so going on, in my case, Kindle Direct Publishing, which was a seamless process and turned out into something that people look at and they say, this is self-publishing? Where? How? And so I just decided not to have any barriers stop me. And if I needed help, to ask.
I love that. I love that. I love the fact that you said you decided not to let any barriers stop you, because to be honest with you, it's all about what you want and the energy that you put into it. So if you're there having dealt with yourself and thinking you're not going to make it, then you're not going to make it. But if you know you're going to succeed and you put your mind to succeeding, then it's only success that's gonna come.
Right.
Um, so, and also want to shout out Janine Carrington, because that's one of the first things that I noticed about your book. I remember you came to the book fair. I came up to your table and I said, "Whoa, this is beautiful artwork. The colors, the imagery, everything was so beautiful." And again, we shop with our eyes first. So I want to
Exactly.
shout you out for making that choice. As for an illustrator. Um, Now, again, I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, but maybe the audience may not have caught it. But Deborah, what innovations or technologies have been crucial to the success or growth of your business?
Yeah, it's been the ability to first of all, working with my sister, because she works with web pages and things like that, and so she was somebody who helped me greatly in developing an online presence. To have right now I have Church Hat the Film, which is the film iteration of turning this into an animated short. But definitely using Kindle Direct Publishing, this is democratized the process of being able to get representation out there. I have to say that even if I was in the traditional stream and there wasn't a pandemic and I tried to get this book published, it wasn't fitting the mold of what people were looking for. I did have some literary agents let me know that this was just one of those messages that wasn't really gonna hit. If you notice, a lot of books come out about the same thing all the time. Sometimes I go into a bookstore and I'm like, why is everything vampires? Why are there how are there so many worlds of vampires, right? Well, one vampire book sold, and so now that's what they're selling, right? And I was trying to find this niche, and I had a sense of impatience. I wanted to be able to do it myself, and I knew that it would have a quality to it that wouldn't necessarily need a larger industrial complex. And so, using Kindle Direct Publishing, which is online and is really a seamless process, was incredible. You know, to be able to get Janine's artwork to integrate it into their format and walk right through their tutorial to be able to finally realize something that was delivered a couple of weeks later like this. And I
Beautiful.
looked at it and I opened the box and I remember thinking, oh well, this is gonna be okay. And then the glowy gloss of it came up and her colors popped, and I couldn't believe it. So definitely being able to use products like Kindle Direct Publishing.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I just want to take a second and remind everybody, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube or Instagram, do remember to like the video. Do remember to follow us. Do remember to subscribe. And as well, share the video, share the live stream with your network so everybody could hear behind the brand and get some of these entrepreneurial
Yeah.
stories. I also want to take a second and big up some of the people that are watching, commenting very frequently. I want to shout out Empowerify on the YouTube. Also want to shout out Clifton Palmer, Romeo Lewis, Jennifer Boyce, one Salicious, of course Desiree Savory. We want to shout out Eric Cotton, one of the early viewers. We want to shout out Crystal Meek, Terrence Lane. Going over to the Instagram, I want to shout out Blessed Cuts, House of Vanity, So Fine, Balloon Treats, Stubbs the DJ, and everybody we have tuning in. We have a very active audience today. So I want to give everybody their shout outs on that. Now, Deborah, to we're gonna move on to the next segment, which is the wheres. So first question I have is, where was the last place you went on vacation?
Oh gosh, this is a very bougie answer, and you're gonna have to forgive me. You have to forgive me for this bougie answer. Months ago, there was a discussion about 10 women going to the south of France. And it happened. We ended up getting a place where we kind of took over the whole place, close to Aix-en-Provence, outside of the town of Gourdes, which is in lavender olive wine country. It was just a couple of weeks ago, so it was supposed to be the off season. So in the off season, I mean, you go somewhere in October in the fall, you think it's going to be rainy, it's going to be cooler, you're going to be inside more, but okay. It's all about everybody getting together. This was a creative retreat for me. I did an awful lot of writing while I was there. It was very unplugged, very different scenery. Of course, I wanted to practice my French because I've been learning French for the last year and a half. And it turned out to be some of the best weather they've ever had. And it was sunny and hot the whole time, not a speck of rain. The place we stayed at was absolutely gorgeous. I was a little apprehensive about maybe having 10 people that we all didn't know each other. Some of us knew some of us, but we all didn't know all of us until we had sort of gotten there together. We all got along swimmingly. And I was able to sit and think and create and meet people and listen to their stories and have them listen to mine and find an atmosphere of support that was unmatched in a really beautiful part of the world, that I don't think we'll ever duplicate that trip again. So forgive me for the bougie answer, but it was the south of France.
Hey, don't worry. I'm pretty sure there's people watching that would love to go to South France, and people that have been there as well. I was speaking with somebody a couple weeks ago, and they mentioned that they France was a place they wanted to go to because they heard the food was great. So
It was. It actually was. Those small towns know how to throw down a plate of food.
all right, all right. So keeping to the wheres and keeping to that theme, maybe your answer might be France again, but where is your favorite place to escape and read a good book? And
Ooh.
what makes it special?
So I again, it's fall. And so I just love to go to find a coffee shop where I can people watch and read. And I never just do one thing. I'm a little bit of a tumbleweed. So I read. I usually want to write when I'm reading, and then I people watch when I write when I'm reading. So I mean, sitting at home and reading is fine too. But I always find being able to sit with a book that's intriguing, but then look up and look at people and check out what they're doing. This another really bougie answer, but I actually have this favorite place to read that's in the city of Prague in the Czech Republic. The reason is it is a
Mhm.
Turkish tea house
Okay.
that I don't know how I find it every time I go there. But it is almost, I don't know if it's a bookstore that has tea or if it's a tea house that has books, but somehow they made this place perfect to sit, have a tea. I see someone saying, "Take me with you next time," and read. And I have gone there. I've gone to Prague about 5 times. It's one of my favorite places to go. And people leave you alone. This is one of the things about that destination that's so amazing. It's one of the best places to go to mind your own business. You can be in Prague for 5 days, 10 days, a week. If you talk with someone, they'll talk to you. If you don't talk to anyone, they leave you alone. So I've gone there with several books and just sat and read and watched people and gone to classical music performances in churches and had an amazing time just thinking. So sorry about that. It's
No, no worries. It is what it is, right? We're going behind the brand. We're talking about the real stories with some of these entrepreneurs. So no need to apologize. Now, Deborah, where have you had the most memorable encounters with readers of your book? So maybe it might have been an event, a place you go, somewhere you were promoting, a
I
family
think
function.
I think it was the second time I came to one of your book pop-ups in where was
I
that?
think it might
It
have
was in the
been,
library. It was in the library in the back
yeah,
of the
in
library.
Malvern, in
In the
Malvern.
Malvern Library. That was where, because I was next to someone who was a school teacher, and she had written, is she ABC Books? She had written a bunch of books. Again, she was an inspiration because she was like, I don't see these books that I want to teach my children, so I wrote them. And and then a lot of kids were at that event, and there was just a stream of parents and kids coming in. So I was really able to sit and talk with people about why I wrote the book. And I never know if people are going to take to this storyline favorably, because it is about a young child who's questioning and about an interaction with their parent. And so I never know how to read people, and I've been pleasantly surprised that people have come up to me and said, this is something that really needs to be told. We love the look of it. Again, thank you, Janine. And I'm not just buying one; I'm buying one for someone else as well. And that was one of the ones that I went to, along with Word on the Street, where I sold out. I think I had like 75 books. I thought, well, I'll just take all the books, and I sold out. And people said, where can I buy this online? So that was a really amazing experience, very validating.
All right. So taking it back now, after your book was published, first published and released, where was the first place that you had your book launch, or where did you make your first book sale?
I had a book launch in the kitchen of my best friend Tina from high school, who I've known since I was 12. She had a whole, and it's on my Instagram page. She had a whole bunch of books for me to sign for people to make sure that I had this book launch in a safe space. I felt like such a big shot. I went out to her home. She had all these books there. I was able to sit there and sign them. And that was my first official book launch.
All
I'm
right.
going
I
to give
love
her
it.
credit for that.
All right. In the kitchen, hey, big or small, the main thing is that you got that book launched and out
Yep.
there. So congratulations on that. So I think we're gonna move to the who, what, where, when. We're gonna move on to the we did the when, so we're gonna move on to the whys.
The what?
So Deborah, the first question I have for you is, why do you think readers are drawn to your work? And what do you hope that they take away from it?
I think that people are drawn to the story because it's just authentic. It's an authentic story. And I think that there's a bit of aversion to saying, that there has to be a story about trust and safety, right? Because so many, I showed this book to someone who's a grown man who was a young boy who was questioning at one point, and the answer to his questioning was that, in his words, and this may be triggering for some people, he got the beating of his life, right? His parents decided that they would just beat the gay out of him. Now, I have no idea. I have no idea if this young boy is gay. I have no idea. I have no idea. He's questioning. So the idea of this book is, can your child ask you a question? And can he be safe, or she be safe, or they be safe asking you that question? And I think that this book illustrates that grace, and that I see people drawing up experiences where they may have had an interaction where they were afraid to say something. And the fact that this young boy is met with a mother who is like, I understand you. You can talk to me. This is the representation of my mother and my grandmother. You are you're my son. You're my child. Talk to me, and we're going to talk about what you're going through. And I think that just resonates with people, whether it's in this setting or another setting that occurs to them. I think people are drawn to the simplicity of it, because I almost wanted to make this into a larger story. I thought, no, 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 this is simple. Just shave it down to an interaction where a young child, thinks he's alone, goes into his mother's closet, tries on her hat, turns around, she's there. I'm in trouble. No, you're not. You're not in trouble. Everything's going to be okay. That's the story. So simple. And I think because it's simple, it's relatable.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
what I
know
was
that
gonna
people
say.
have sat, at book fairs and gone on for 20 minutes telling me about something that's totally unrelated, but it had to do with safety, and it had to do with a feeling of belonging. And I think that's why it resonates. And I think that's why
Yeah,
it will translate to being an animated short. Because another thing I get from kids who are totally unfiltered is, are you going to make this into a movie? I got that so many times when a child would read it. Are you going to make this into a movie? And so when I was talking with Eric Cotton, who is my managing producer for Church Hat the film, and he said, we can do this. We can make this into an animated short. I thought, well, the kids were right. Out of the mouth of babes. Sure, we're going to do this.
all right, lovely, lovely, lovely. And like you said, I think, like you said, your book, when you're telling the story and you're telling people about why you wrote the book, it opens up that conversation again, because it's not just about, whether he's this or that, but it's
Right.
about being open with your kids, whatever the conversation may be,
Yeah.
and figuring out how to speak with your kids without releasing all that trauma and
Yes.
that. So
Yes. That one act of safety is a barrier to a generation of trauma. Just just
definitely.
just to not overreact and just say, what's going on with you? For all I know, a month from now, this little boy doesn't even remember he put a hat on. That's what kids are like. You've got kids. I love your son is adorable, by the way.
Thank
He
you.
is hilarious. He comes to your book signings. He's like a little you. He's just got a lot he's got a lot of personality. He's talking to people. It's like, I love seeing him at the book fairs. But kids change, they change their mind. And when they go through something, the whole idea is, just talk to me about what you're thinking here.
All right. So, Deborah, you mentioned that you do a lot of reading and you have a lot of favorite authors. Do you prefer written books or ebooks?
Oh, written. I'm a hold the book person. I do have a Kobo reader that's, I think, about 15 years old right now. I have to actually find like old Wi-Fi to be able to upload things into it. So there's sometimes when I'm reading something very quickly, and I, can get it something from the Toronto library. I love the library system. I'm always downloading things from the library. So if it's a fast read or something that I just, want to see what it's like, I may do it as an ebook. But I love to reread a chapter. I'm a highlighter. I'm a bookmarker.
You get fully
I
involved.
want the book. I want the book. I'm in friendships with people who we switch books around, and I can see where where it's worn, where they read them. The book itself is a story, in and of itself. Just holding that, like, don't you want to hold this? Don't you want to hold this? I don't want to hold this book. I want to read it again. I want to hold it. So I'm a hold the book kind of person.
You're a hold the booker.
Yeah.
All right, so Deborah, I'm gonna kick it back to the whens,
Okay.
right? So I want to know, when did you when did you when did you write the book? Like, when did it get released? What year?
It was 2021. It was
Okay,
June or July of 2021.
and is that like, when did you first realize that you wanted to be an author or an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh. When it comes to wanting to be an author, I think I knew that. I think I knew that when I first started writing in journals when I was in my teens. I've always wanted to make a living as a writer. I've always seen myself in that way. But life takes over, and it's not you can have everything. You just can't have it all at once, right? So I'm in my season where writing is something that I can fit into my life, and I'm really happy about it because I have experience, right? I've lived life. So I've traveled. I've had friendships. I've been in relationships. I've worked in different places. I've worked in different countries. And so I think I can bring more to my writing now than when I was writing earlier. I look at earlier writings and I think, well, that could be better. Kind of glad I didn't try to publish that. As well, I go into bookstores sometimes and I'll pick up a book and I'll think, well, who wrote this? This person needs a little bit more experience. There's nothing here. So that's why I know my stories are going to be great and that I'm going to be able to share my experiences through the book of short stories that I'm writing right now and whatever else I produce, the follow up to Short Chat.
All right, perfect. So with that being said, you just mentioned how you've looked back at some of your older works and you're glad you didn't put that out. So a question that, could help somebody watching is, when did you experience a significant setback in your journey, and how did you overcome it?
I don't know. I think a lot of the setbacks just have to do with coming across a barrier and either letting it stop you because you're not asking for help, because of pride or because of fear, or listening to inner voices that tell you that, well, this is a sign that you shouldn't go any further. From reading biographies, from reading the stories about other people who have become known so that you want to read their autobiographies or their biographies, my lesson is perseverance. So maybe it wasn't my time now, but don't give up on it being my time later. Or, change the room you're in. Take a different route to work.
Good advice.
Maybe you're always going up Queen Street and then across on Parliament. Maybe you should go up to Bloor and then down Church.
Get a different
Maybe
look, yeah.
maybe instead of going to your restaurant that you always know about, go to a different restaurant. Find out where there's a festival and walk around and meet new people. Put yourself in a different environment. These are things I learned from my mother and grandmother, by the way. They were so good at socializing and learning about other people. They were always very curious, and they didn't just let the world come to them. And so I take a barrier as a challenge. I take a barrier as an indication that I need to step back and reevaluate. I also sometimes see a barrier as a message that something isn't for me. That's what empowerment is. The
Very
ability
true.
to say, oh, this isn't for me right now. I can say no to this.
Sometimes you
And
got
that's
to
not
step back.
failure. That's not failure. That's just either I've lost perspective. I'm not listening to the right advice. Why, if everything was going against me when I'm trying to do something, what is the universe trying to tell me about what I'm trying to do? I'm doing it the wrong way. I'm doing it at the wrong time, or I'm taking it away from someone else and I'm missing what I should be doing. So I see barriers as lessons and I don't let them stop me.
All right. Well, I love that, and I definitely agree with that. Again, I love the fact that you don't see barriers as something that's going to stop you. You just see it as the next challenge
They're
that
messages. They're
you
just
got to
messages.
overcome. All right, perfect. So I think we're going to move on to the next segment, is the hows. So something that we all go through as entrepreneurs.
Mm.
How did you fund the initial stages of your business? Is it something that you saved up for? Did you get a loan? Did you ask family, friends? Did you do fundraising? How did you make that happen?
I just saved up. I just saved up for it. And again, if we're talking about the publication of this book, it was free. you know,
Well,
it
that's
was
always
me.
good.
It was me writing. The only expense, and well worth it, was Janine as an illustrator. right? And that was just someone who I was happy to compensate for her time and her work, because she made my words come to life. She put color and vibrancy to this in a way that makes you want to pick it up. You want to pick this up and you want to read it. And then my words are introduced to you. It's not, I have a book of poetry that no one's ever going to read, right? Or I'm going to get Janine to illustrate them, and then someone's going to say, "Ooh, what's that picture?" And then
Oh,
they're going
what's
to
that?
discover my
And then
words,
it
right?
opens up that conversation.
Right. So, because I used Kindle Direct Publishing, which is free, all I did was upload it and then just wait for the royalties to come in.
Good
you
process.
know,
That's a good process. It works.
and frankly, when I go to your events, which are very reasonably priced, I always am able to get a booth that pays for my time there, and my uncle or someone else, I don't drive, will help me get my stuff there, and sit with me, and I have supports everywhere, so it really hasn't been a financial hardship. As in, say, starting a candle business where you have to figure out where you're going to have a warehouse, you're going to have supplies, you're going to have inventory sitting around. It's not that kind of retail situation.
Well, definitely thank you for that. Again, those who are watching may have questions about how they're going to start their journey, how they're going to fund it.
Yeah.
People, sometimes you got to put your foot on the ground and save up those dollars in order to make your dreams happen. So shout
Well,
out
I
to
mean,
Deborah for
I'll
that.
say that in doing the film, the film, that the transferring of this from a book to a film, that is something that we are funding right now. And when you go to my webpage, Church at the Film, there is an opportunity there to help fund it. And what we're doing is we're doing crowdfunding, and we're doing grants for that. Trying to see
Yeah.
what kind of arts council grants there are out there, or what other kinds of sources of funding we can have, because my creative team is incredible.
All right. Well, Deborah, I've seen you at different events. I've seen you outside of the author setting. I've seen you at work doing your thing as well. And every time I see you, you're always in a great mood. You're always smiling. So, how do you stay motivated as an entrepreneur and author?
I'll have to go back to growing up in a family business. I saw my parents motivate each other. I saw them, value each other's strengths. I know a lot of people out there, in the hustle, or who are trying to do their entrepreneurial journey, may think you have to do everything. Please don't do that. If you're good at product design and you're good at marketing, you're probably not a good accountant. If you're good at visualizing, or you're good at something, it takes so much to be an entrepreneur. Ask for help, talk to your friends, the other people that are good at things, that want to help you. I've already mentioned so many people that have been there for me, that and I take their grace. And so I would say that funding is always going to be a boogeyman, but you just have to keep persevering. Most of the people that I've read about who were successful just didn't stop. I'm really motivated by people like Tyler Perry, right? This is
Great
somebody who
person.
started doing plays for an audience that no one was doing plays for. He was kind of like this underground, you know, plays that he was doing for Black audiences that weren't seeing themselves on the stage. And he built a 10-year journey of people who knew him in order to be able to release his first film. And you look at him now, and he's got Tyler Perry Studios, and
Yeah.
he's got 6 shows on different networks. That person was in the grind for a decade before he was able to get funding from a studio. And so these are inspirations that I have around just keep going, and your time will come if you keep going. If you're doing the right thing, that's for you. And so those stories really help me to get perspective. And if you go on social media and you go in some other kind of artificial environment where all you see is people on their best day, and all
Yeah.
you see is them with fake backgrounds and filters, you'll think, oh, I want to be a millionaire, tomorrow, because I have some cute idea that I put on a 20-second clip. That's not the way that works.
It's not real
It's not
life.
the way that works. So,
All right. So, Deborah, question: how can aspiring entrepreneurs learn from your journey?
well, first of all, you can buy the book, and write what you know. That's the first thing I would say. If you want to be a writer, write what you know. If you have an eye for a certain type of creativity, and you want to weave your experience into it, write what you know. You should be comfortable in the skin you're in when you're an entrepreneur, right? I'm trained as an auditor and a fraud examiner who has worked in equity, diversity, and inclusion for years. When I do consulting, I'm comfortable in that space. I'm comfortable talking about the standard practices, the wise practices, the benchmarking, and the experiences of the people that I've worked with to be able to transfer that to other people as well. So I know what I'm doing because I'm very confident in my experiences being able to inform me, but always continuously learn as well. I would never fold my arms and think, okay, I've heard it all, I've learned it all, I'm the expert. No, there's always someone who can teach you something. Knowledge exchange is an integral part of the way I think. And there is leadership at all levels. I go downstairs in my condo and I talk to the gentlemen and the women that are the concierge, because they see everything. I want to know what they're seeing. I want to talk with them. They're people that are keeping me safe, and I don't look down on them or think of them as someone that I just walk by and get my packages because of what they're doing for a living. These are intelligent people. I want to know how you got here.
Yeah.
Someone who just left last week, he was a doctor. He's a newcomer to Canada. He was a doctor. He was just doing this night shift because he was going to school during the day, right? And now he's going to go back and start a practice because he was biding his time. My parents came to Canada after we lived in Jamaica. They started over. And people may have looked at them and said, oh, these folks aren't anything. And you didn't know them when they were running, an entire, you know, store and a variety store and pharmacy that supported an entire neighborhood. So I never discount people. I feel as if I can learn from everyone. Always learn, always listen, and always think that there's something that you can contribute to someone else, and lift as you climb, kind of like you do, Jamal, lifting as you climb. Always lifting as you climb, always making spaces for people who don't know where to go and saying, here's a space for you. I am so deeply grateful for the opportunity that you've given me to show my book to people in those book fairs and online. I can't tell you how important it has been for me to make that connection with you.
Well, thank you very much for the feedback. You know what I mean? I do what I can. I have access to certain things. So like you say, why go there by myself? If you can bring a generation of people up with you, then we could all celebrate at the top together. So that's what I'm about, and that's what I love to promote. And just like you mentioned, when you like to speak with the concierge, you like to speak with the security, you like to find out more because again, you want to go behind the brand. You see them
Yeah.
as a security guard, but you want to know the behind the stories, the inside, what got them there. So I definitely resonate with that. Just a couple more questions here.
Right.
Um, where do you envision the future of your business, and how and what strategies are you taking to get there?
So the immediate future is just turning the book into an animated short, and that is unfamiliar territory for me. And so I am trusting the people that I'm working with, the animator Michal O'Donnell and the managing director Eric Cotton. These are people that have produced films before that are working with me, and I have to just take their advice and understand that I'm learning from them. It may be my IP, and I may be the executive producer because I wrote the book, but I defer to their decisions. And the thing that I want to be able to do is let you know in 2024, the first film festival where we're going to be screening the short. That's the first thing. The other thing I want to do is I just want to keep publishing. I may dip my toe into the traditional route to see how that works. Maybe submit something to Random House or House of Anansi Press or something and see what happens. But I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm not afraid of saying, fine, nobody else wants to, take a chance on me. I'll take a chance on
Take a
myself.
chance on yourself.
And I'll just keep doing creative things because, again, Black stories matter. My experience matters. Traveling as a Black woman all across the world, I have things to say about that. I have things to say about my life. I have things to say about the people who I've met and the stories that I want to bring forward. And the reason that it's my best life books is because I want to continuously write stories about, people of color and Black people living their best life. We have enough trauma out there describing who we are and saying that it's about one pain point or another pain point. And those stories are true. I just don't think that we should dwell on only one story. I want to hear stories about people that have triumphed and about people that have been able to walk out of their trauma and are triumphant in their life, and have the audacity of a happy ending. So those are the stories I want to bring forward.
All right, lovely. So, in going with the future, I know you've touched on it throughout the throughout the live, but I know for sure you're transitioning the book into a short story. I mean, a short film.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, just tell us about that process quickly,
So the first
and
part
why
of it
you
was,
decided to do that. Yeah.
yeah, so the first thing was the conversation. I'm sitting last year between screenings with my then Midnight Madness partner. We're going to go to midnight movies, Eric Houghton, who's produced films, award-winning films on his own. And the conversation just evolved. What do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with this book? And I said, oh, I want to turn it into an animated short. And he said, let's do it. And it's an endorsement from someone who knows how much work this is. This person knows what he's saying when he says, let's do it. So I'm going to take that grace. And it was scary to think about it. But he said, no, 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 we've got this. Relax. I know exactly what to do. We searched for an animator. We came across a couple of options. And then we came across someone named Michal O'Donnell, who he does stop motion paper puppetry. And I don't know if you know what that looks like, but I love that technique. And the reason I like that technique is because it looks like the way a child thinks. Very simple. It looks simple. It's hard to do because it's very labor intensive, but he's not using AI to create something that feels artificial or feels remote. It feels very authentic what it is he's creating. And so the process is now that as we're creating, we're trying to work with a production company. I would love to give you exciting news about who the voice of the mother is going to be. I'm in preliminary discussions about who that person is. It's going to be really exciting when that person comes on board, for us to be able to match the voice to the animation. And for right now, it's in the hands of the experts. It's in the hands of the experts. I'm signing contracts and I'm sending information off for agreements for us to be able to establish, working relationships with production companies and with talent. But the people who have the reins are those who know what they're doing. And so a process like this demands that you find the right people and then you
Find the right
trust them.
people. Trust the process. Well, hopefully, when you are ready to release that special voiceover person, you come back on the show and we can let the masses know all at once.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. So, Deborah, um, how can people contact you and how can they purchase your book if interested?
So right now, the best way to purchase the book is on Amazon. Just look up Church Hat Children's Book and it'll come up. You'll see this beautiful one of a kind, where am I thing? Yeah, you'll see this. It'll come up and you'll be able to purchase it. It is getting into Indigo, but they had a bit of an issue with their logistics, on data issues on their IT. So they're reloading some of their titles, so it won't come up there yet. But I'm going to be working with them to get physical copies in their locations in Toronto as well. And you asked me more than one question. What was it?
So, I said, how can they contact you and also
Ah,
how can they purchase the book? So, how can they contact Deborah?
they can contact me at connect at Church Hat the Film. That's the best way to connect with me right now.
Perfect, perfect. So you guys heard that correct. You can go to Church at the Film. You could purchase the book on Amazon. You could also contact Deborah, and you can find out what event she's going to be at next, and you could come get your book signed. You can learn more about the process and network and build, as I say. So
Oh, and you
Deborah,
can also just follow me on Instagram. You can follow me at Story to Screen, or you can follow me at My Best Life Books.
perfect. So we'll put those links up before the show's done as well, so people have
Thank
that
you.
that information. So Deborah, final question is: do you have or what words of inspiration, what words of motivation, any final words for the viewers out there, or any entrepreneurs that may be hesitant about starting their journey, about having thoughts of quitting? The floor is yours to give some final words to the masses out there.
It sounds cheesy, but I would say believe in yourself. I really would say believe in yourself because as you experience other people's ideas coming to you and you do that face plant where you say, God, somebody did that. I had that idea. We've all had that, right? Where we've seen something that was invented or something very simple that's made it to market and we think, I could have done that. The answer is you could have done that. And there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. And if you want to be a writer, people want to hear what you have to say. There's a lot of stuff out there that's published because that's what's available. But where are you? You have stories that are relatable. You have stories that are important. You have stories that are relevant. And you have stories that are authentic that people want to read. Whether it's a short story, whether it's a poem, or whether it's a full length, novel. Get a team around you to help you understand what to do. There's plenty of opportunities for you to find guides on, writing styles. Start to journal. Just start to write. If you haven't written in a while, I tend to freehand. I don't necessarily type to. Typing doesn't make me think the way that writing does. Find yourself a quiet spot where you can think or people watch, and just start writing and believe that what you have lived through and what you have to say is going to resonate with someone else or a lot of people, because there are stories out there that haven't been told, and our stories need to be told. Can't hear you. You're on mute, hun.
Thank you. I love that. I love the fact that you said if you're thinking about writing, just do it. Just you got to start somewhere. And another important thing that you said, which I totally agree with, is there's stories to be told, and we need the people to tell them. So we all have the individual stories. We all have our processes. We all have things that are going through, and sometimes you just putting that story out there in the world is enough to change somebody's life. Somebody reading the book might resonate with the same story, saying, man, this is what I was thinking. But so I'm glad I read this, because it opens you up and realizes that you're not alone. So I want to
Yes.
shout you out for that, for those words of inspiration.
Thank
And again, I
you.
want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for being in the network. You always big me up, but I also got to big you up as well, because you're one person that does not hesitate to publicly motivate others. So I see the posts that you make, I see the comments. So I myself want to give you praise, and I want to thank you for what you do on social media, and for the links and connections that you make outside of social media. You know what I'm talking about. Other
I
people
do.
may not know, but Debra does a lot for me as well, and she vouches for me in many ways. So Debra, I want to give you your kudos, and I want to shout you out, and I want to thank you, and I also want to thank everybody that supports you, because from this live stream I could see that you have a lot of supporters, and I see that you have a lot of fans in your corner. So that means you're
Just
doing
think some of
something
these
right.
comments, bad and bougie. They're hilarious. Oh my gosh, look at all these comments. That's hilarious.
All right, Debra. So again, I want to thank you for being on the show. We had a great conversation. We got to learn more about your backstory and why you wrote the book and some of the stuff you have coming up. So we look forward to the Story to Screen Instagram page to find out more about the Church Hat, the short film. And we're also looking forward for the Church Hat Part 2. So thank you again for joining us. Let's see that book cover. All right, perfect. So again, thank you, Debra. People, we were speaking with Debra Williams here, and thank you again. You have yourself a great day.
Thank you so much, Jamal. Good night. And thanks to everybody who joined. I really appreciate it.
All right, perfect.